This is a weed-2 that was started about a year or two ago. We started at the end of the summer, and unfortunately you can only get these materials at a certain time of the year, which is right now, spring. Once I get done with that, it'll just be a matter of getting the bark and putting it on, and I'll probably be putting some bedding platforms inside as well for the kids to sit on. Eventually it'll be used to conduct programs for the school here, Hastings School. These are cedar poles, Atlantic white cedar, and they too can only be gathered at a certain certain time of the year if you expect to bend them. As you can see, the round shape is a result of being able to bend these poles, and if you get them in the summer, they're too dry and the sap isn't flowing, therefore they'll snap. So it's really important that you do this process at the right time of the year. Probably have about no more than 5 or 7 permanently in this house. You should still have room for guests. Be used during the summertime primarily. The framework would actually look very much like this during the winter months. There wouldn't be a covering on it. We had different places to stay for the winter. These weed-2s, they were located out by the ocean. That's where you'd usually see the planting sites. The first mile inland from shore, they said, was cleared land for the planting fields. Most fertile soil also. And they would come out during the springtime. Chances are a frame like this would have already been in place from them staying here last year, and they would literally come out with some cattail mats and they would cover it over. The cattail mats are really difficult to collect and make, so generally we tend to use bark now. This is of course a commercial twine that I'm using now. Originally we had similar type of cordage that we could make out of milkweed, dogbane, false nettle fibers. Today they call it Indian hemp, but we didn't come from India and the hemp plant wasn't growing around here that I know of, so we would use those other plants that I just mentioned. When doing a project like this though, you notice that the poles themselves are bare. They don't have any of the bark on them. Every so often you can see where I've used the actual bark lashing. That's the bark that was peeled right off of the wood itself. And that usually is what I use because it's authentic, traditional, and makes sense that you would use that since you're using these poles. You peel the bark also as a preventative measure because it does actually help to keep the wood, the pole itself, it'll last longer if you take the bark off. Otherwise it's gonna trap moisture and your wood will rot quicker than it would if you didn't have bark on there. So it's kind of a dual purpose. You take off the bark to preserve the wood, and also you can use the bark. So the cedar, for me, it's like perfect all around material for this kind of process because it bends well. Cedar, as most people know, bugs don't eat it. It lasts a long time on its own, and the bark, once you've peeled it, it's useful itself to tie the house together, so I try to use it as often as I can. It also helps when you're trying to introduce all of this to the school children, where all these materials come from and how they're utilized so that you get the most out of what you've collected. So this here is the bark that's going to be used to cover the actual house, the frame. Over here is pretty much all hemlock. It's a type of evergreen, a fir tree almost. Over here we have a lot of poplar. I'm not quite sure what species of poplar this top few pieces are, but that piece there is what they call the tulip poplar because when you look at the leaves they resemble a tulip. They also refer to it as yellow poplar. Chances are I'm going to be using the hemlock first, put that on the bottom row. Since it has so many holes, they'll be easier to be patched at a lower level. As you go higher on the house, that's the more protection from the rain and snow, so we're going to use the more solid pieces as we go up. This stuff's only been here about 2 days, so luckily it's still flexible.